Hi, beautiful. Welcome back to another episode of the I Am podcast. Today, we're going to be doing another mini Bible study. This is our second one. We are working our way through Proverbs, and today are going to be diving into Proverbs chapter 2. Before we get started, I wanted to bring into context how I at least am learning through Proverbs, and that's through Ephesians 3:20. I heard this verse being spoken a few days ago, and this really just stuck out to me. So it says, "Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us." This verse is quoted all the time as a way to give us hope and encouragement that God can do so much more than we imagine. But a lot of times we forget that we play an active, integral role in those things that we are hoping for coming into fruition in our lives. We are actually an integral part of that process, as it is the power of God working through us, working within us to manifest the beautiful things that we hope to see in this life. And so Proverbs, I believe, is a really practical book that kind of teaches us and helps us learn how to become those people that are able to host and really manifest all of the potential that God has put into us. Proverbs teaches wisdom to become that person that can be more used by God. So I have my notes here, and jumping right into Proverbs chapter 2, it really starts kind of alluding back to chapter 1, verse 7, where we learn that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And verses 1 through 5 of chapter 2 remind us that turning and searching for wisdom will bring us into the fear and knowledge of God. Fear being reverence, honor, respect. And the reason that this turning and search us brings us to this place is because it is the Lord that gives wisdom. This reminds me of the verse that says, "You'll find me when you seek me." And similarly, as we're seeking wisdom, we'll find God, and God will give us that wisdom. And we learn in verse 6 that knowledge and understanding comes from his mouth. It comes from the word of God. So reading this also helps. Verses 7 and 8 go into some of the benefits that come from walking in wisdom, walking in knowledge. So we have some listed out. God holds success for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk blameless. He guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones. He protects his children. That's just how he is. Now, we know some principles such as hard work bearing fruit, such as how God causes the rain to fall, the sun to rise on both the good and the evil. We know that there are universal truths that can allow life to still be very beautiful and joyful and prosperous without ever really bringing God into the picture, you could say, because God still made the world. There are certain principles of just how things work that you can still learn from, operate in without knowing God personally. But the favor and the protection that comes from having a relationship with God that we learn comes from walking in the ways of wisdom. Like, that is just something unmatched. And the peace that comes with that is unmatched, and is why I'm sitting here talking to y'all about it today. Now, when this happens, when the Lord begins to speak to us, when we learn wisdom and things, it enters our heart and it also becomes pleasant. Chapter 1 talked about it a lot, how for many of us and in many seasons, getting correction, getting advice can feel like a burden. It can feel annoying. It can feel bothersome. But there comes a point where wisdom and knowledge and understanding begins to be something that you appreciate, something that you're excited for, something that you want more of. And when this happens, there are two key things that come with it. And this is discretion and understanding. Here it says that discretion will protect you and understanding will guard you. Now, this is really important, and I think something that's been really big in my life, especially now just finishing undergrad, going into the real world, being a full adult for the first time. How do I navigate the world in a quote unquote wise way? And it's important to look at the definition of these words. So understanding is to be able to perceive the intended meaning of words, a language, or a speaker. Ways that this has shown up in my life: one, like self-reflection wise, being able to better understand myself, better understand why is this thing annoying me, or why am I feeling mad at this situation, or why do I feel the need for X, Y, Z. Even being able to perceive the intentions of the people around me, Or at work, if my manager is telling me something, being able to read between the lines and really understand what she's saying, or being able to ask a question to help me better understand what she's saying, and realizing the importance of understanding, which I think in itself is a blessing, because it can be so easy to just go off of what we feel or go off whatever's happening in the moment. But when you have that extra desire to really understand things, you can just move through life so much more effectively and efficiently. And then discretion. This is the quality of behaving or speaking in such a way as to avoid causing offense or revealing private information. And this one, especially personally, I can have a little bit of a passive attitude, has been a blessing. This has been a blessing because it allows me to learn to have more self-control, to keep things to myself. And we learn here that discretion, that ability to be slow to speak, it protects you, and understanding guards you. And we're given examples of this through two main things: people who have really bad intentions for us, and people who have perverted intentions for us. So, wisdom saves from wicked men with perverse words who delight in doing wrong and are devious. There are people that God has given me just a feeling to stop talking to. And after having stopped talking to them, the the magnitude of how just devious and ill-willed of others they are came to light. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I could have experienced so much worse than I did. But I thank God for wisdom. I thank God for his voice and for listening to it even when I didn't see the full picture. And I think this is something that's also important to understand, is that yes, like Proverbs is very straightforward, but there are some things that you won't see into. But by listening to God, you're protecting yourself from things like this, from people who don't have good intentions for your life, from people who are really on the prowl to just overcome whoever they can, to take advantage of whoever they can. And that doesn't always have to be in relationships. Sometimes that can be in your finances. Sometimes that can even be in religion. Sometimes that can be in friendships or in family. So there are so many areas that the manipulative spirit that people have can manifest itself against you. And so it's so important to have a listening ear in this area. The second main way that we learn about is from people who have a perverted view of you, or are trying to pervert your view of yourself. It gives the example of a woman who has ignored God and is living in adulterous ways, leading to spiritual death. I don't know about y'all, but when I was in my BC era, and even speaking to friends who've also grown in similar areas, like when you're in a space where you're not honoring yourself in a certain way, yes, while in the moment things can seem enjoyable, you're hurting yourself internally. You're damaging yourself emotionally. You're in situations that are causing you to leave with scars. And even if you don't feel that way, you're covering up a deeper hurt with relationships and things that don't really have your best interest in mind. So when this passage was talking about how it leads to a spirit of death, I could really feel that. I know for me, like the past years, like God has been slowly healing and bringing back to life the part of my heart that can really love and like love people, because there was a part of it that did die through having experiences that were perverting who I was meant to be as a person, and that weren't honoring the beauty and value that I had as a person. And I didn't see that when in it. I didn't see that when choosing those things for myself. But by gaining wisdom, I can now walk in a way where I am making sure to protect myself and to avoid the situations, even though it's not always easy to do. So, considering all of this, we are called to walk in the ways of the good. Verse 20, you will walk in the ways of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright and blameless will live in the land, will live in the promise that God has for them. Throughout the Old Testament, it talks about the promised land and getting to the promised land and living in the promised land. And it was disobedience that kept keeping people back from entering into that space. And so this is really giving us context how in our day-to-day lives we can experience that similar thing where we don't have to be held back from the promises that God has for us if we choose to listen. And even going back to Ephesians 3:20, where it says God is able to do far more than we could ever think or imagine, and how that happens through us, we have to be aligned with that vision, that bountifulness that God has for us, in order to see that promise come into fruition, in order to live in that promise. And so these things are really giving us practicals on how to experience that. And I think something really important to take away also is that it's not easy and it's not straightforward. The first verses talk about like calling out for insight, crying loud for understanding, looking for it as for silver, searching for it as hidden treasure. Like, I don't know if any of y'all grew up playing Minecraft, but like silver is not the easiest element to find. Like, you have to get to a certain level of tool, you have to get certain materials, you have to dig for a while, you have to reach under a certain level of stone. And even when you do find it, it's not all right next to each other. You have to really search for it. You have to upkeep that certain level of tool that you have to continue finding it. Similarly with hidden treasure, like if something is hidden, that means you're going to be uncovering it step by step. You're going to be uncovering it slowly over time. And so yes, while we are called to live upright, while we are called to live good, the journey of doing so is not perfect, and knowing it's imperfect isn't an excuse to continue playing yourself, basically, because I know that's what I did for a while, just played myself. Not an excuse to continue doing that, but it's a freedom to know that you're allowed to mess up. You're allowed to go this direction and realize, oh, that's not what this meant for me. You're allowed to have a relationship with God to where you're learning back and forth, not where everything is a true false test and it's pass fail. That's not what this is. This is not a pass fail test. This is a journey of learning and growing and aligning with the purpose that God has for your life. And something that they said at church today that really encouraged me, we understand that it is God's righteousness over us because our righteousness is as filthy rags. Basically saying that the onus is not on us. We are covered by God, and within that we are welcomed into this journey of like exploration, of learning about who God is, learning about what that means for us, and uncovering what our purpose is along the way. But I hope that this chapter really encouraged you. I know it encouraged me, that even though sometimes it can feel isolating, it can feel difficult, it can feel painful to basically deny yourself and choose things that are closely aligned with God and His Word, even though that can be difficult, that the benefits of that, the spiritual benefits of that, the benefit of being in the favor of God is so worth it. And yes, while there are principles, there are blessings that God gives on every person, regardless of if they have faith in Him or not, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive to have more. We shouldn't settle for the bare minimum of just existing in this created world. We should try to pursue and learn more about what it means to tap into the spiritual treasure, basically, that is available for us as we're seeking wisdom and learning more and more every day. But I hope that this was encouraging. Don't forget to share with a friend or someone that you think this would bless. I hope that you enjoyed this. This new series is really fun for me because I always have this stuff in my head, but it's nice getting to share it with you guys. Leave anything that you learned from these passages down below. Like I always say, not a professional, not a teacher. This is just a space for us to really just sit and learn and grow together and bounce ideas off of each other and experience the freedom that is learning more of who God is. So hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.